Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We do several webinars a month. Generally on the first Wednesday of the month, our sales team does an overview for people that are either new to ClubExpress or are trying to decide what association management solution to use and seeing if ClubExpress is right for them. And generally on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, we do a deep dive into some piece of functionality. Today's webinar is one of those. We're going to be talking about the new text messaging module. I normally do a little introduction like this, and then I do a demonstration. But first, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All of the phones and microphones are muted except for mine and Samantha's. So if you have questions, please enter them into the chat window. Ask questions there, and Samantha will be monitoring the chat and will either raise questions as they come up, or we will revisit the questions at the end to see if there's anything that we need to drill down on. And this is particularly good for those people that are viewing the recording, so they have benefit of knowing what questions were asked. And speaking of recordings, the recording of this webinar and all of our webinars and tutorials are available, or will be available in a couple of days. And the way you get to them is to go to clubexpress.com and click on the cool stuff link at the top of the page. Then on the left-hand side, you'll see a link for webinars. There'll be the webinar schedule, and you'll see a list of recorded webinars towards the bottom of the page. Similarly, the video tutorials are available on the video tutorial tab, as well as on your control panel support tab, and on the new help system, on the help screens. All the videos are available on YouTube. So if you go to any of our videos, you can click on the subscribe button. And if you click on subscribe, a little bell icon comes up where you can click on notify. So that way you can be notified every time a new video is posted, whether it be tutorials or overviews or version announcements or webinars. And for those of you who are using ClubExpress, and particularly for those of you who really enjoy using ClubExpress and find that ClubExpress is working well for your organization, we'd appreciate it if you go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these links here and leave a review of ClubExpress. Let people know how it's working in your organization, so people that are deciding on association management solutions can have the benefit of your experience. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new text messaging module. Now, this is an optional module in ClubExpress, means it's not enabled by default and you have to explicitly enable it. And what the text messaging module does is it allows administrators and authorized coordinators to send text messages to your members and to non-members to their mobile phones or mobile devices. Now, this is particularly useful for clubs that need to send out very timely information, such as a reminder to register for an event, or a notification about new content, or an event update. Say maybe there's a venue change, a weather-related activity, and any other kinds of reminders. My sons are in their 30s. And a couple of years ago, I said, oh, listen, I'll drop you an email with something I need to discuss with you. And they said, oh, Dad, that's your technology. We rarely go to emails. We do everything through text messaging. So messaging is becoming more and more important, especially if your members tend to be on the younger side, or if you want to attract millennials and other people that live on their phones with their text messaging. So this is something that you may want to consider. And unlike most other things in ClubExpress, this is an opt-in system, which means that your members and non-members must explicitly give your club or association permission to send them text messages. And that's because the sending of text messages is governed by the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. So you can't just spam people. You can't just send them text messages without their permission. Fortunately, the way we've designed the text messaging module is that it uses many of the same features that you would use for emailing. So you can build distribution lists, you can have categories and things like that. And so you can send, like you could send an email to members of a particular committee or everybody that lives in a particular state, you can do the same kind of thing and use the same distribution lists for your text messages. So, you may have people that only check their email once a day, or if they're out of the office, they don't get to see their email, but they may be checking their text messages. So instead of sending an email, you can send a short message to the user's mobile phone, again, only when they've agreed to receive such messages. Let me just talk about what we're going to try to demonstrate today. Show how to enable the text messaging, and we'll discuss the charges. We'll talk about the quick notify feature, which sends an email to your members asking them for permission to send text messages. I'll show how a member can edit their own profile to enable text messaging. And then we'll go into the text messaging administration. We'll look at the search results, how to add a message, its basic information, creating a distribution list, content, and the new short link builder. And we'll look at a couple of delivery options like double length messages and scheduling and what time zone you have to pay attention to. And we'll talk about some configuration options and look at things like the bad numbers and user report buttons. When you go to the control panel and you go to the communications tab, you'll see that there is a new text messaging link. And if you click on that link or click on the edit icon, it takes you to a screen that is the text messaging options. The way you enable text messaging is you click on enable text messaging on that little checkbox, and then you would save it. But it's important to read what the messaging option says. It says that you're agreeing to be billed $2 a month. And what this $2 a month is for a toll-free number that's assigned to your club so that when the text messages are sent, they're sent from that particular toll-free number. And your members on their phones can say, oh, this number, that is the Northwest Balloon Club messages. So that way they can put it into the contact list and it just doesn't show up as some 800 number. It would show up as your club name. So it's $2 a month for the toll-free number. And that's regardless of whether or not you send text messages. That number is reserved for you. And then you get charged per message that is actually delivered. The charge for each one depends on what country you're in. In the United States, those are 2 cents per delivered message. So if you send out something that you expect to have 10 messages go out and only 6 actually get delivered for whatever reason, they're bad numbers or somehow or another people are refusing, you would only be charged for the messages that were actually delivered. So by checking that box at the bottom of the form, you're agreeing to enable text messaging and to be charged the rates that we just discussed. There's a link there of rates to other countries. If you have people that are in other countries, the messaging rates may differ. Once you've enabled it, on the administration screen, there's this really cool feature, and you'll see it when we go to the administration, called the quick notify request. As I mentioned, you can't enable this for other users. So if you go into somebody's profile, you'll be able to see a little checkbox that says allow text messages to be sent. But if you're an administrator, it's grayed out for you on everybody's account except your own. When you click on notify members, it sends an email to all of your members. And depending on whether or not they have already enabled text messages, if they haven't enabled text messages, the link in the email takes them to a page that says either I would like to receive text messages, or I don't want to receive text messages. But if they're already receiving text messages, that email says, I'm currently accepting text messages and I want to keep receiving them, or I don't want to receive them. So that it is at that point giving them the option to change their mind if they need to. That's something that I can't demonstrate to you because it's already been done. So now let me see if I share my screen. We're already logged in as an administrator. I'm logged in as Martin Smith. And he's an administrator. So we go to the control panel and click on communications, click on text messaging. Now, as with any other module or most modules, you can also assign coordinators. So you can assign people to be able to send out text messages. So administrators obviously can do anything, but if you want a coordinator of a particular function, you can add a coordinator here. If I go into the text messaging system here, you'll see here that we've got this quick notify request, and that's the slide I showed you before. If I click on notify members, it will send out an email to everybody. Now, this is a demo club. I don't want to send out emails to everybody. We've already discussed what that does. It sends them an email to a link with a link to the page that lets them decide what they want to do about text messages. Before we go in here, if I go to my profile and go into contact info, you'll see at the bottom of the screen here, they're under other contacts. If they are joining through their personal lives, if that's what you set your club up for, it'll be under other contacts. If you set it up through their business or professional lives, I think it's just a field in the main contact area. Well, you see how we have this checkbox here? So I can check this, but if I look at anybody else's profile through the member manager, that is grayed out. So now let's just go back into the control panel. So Martin Smith has agreed to accept text messages. I'm not actually going to send him a text message at the moment. From the text messaging manager, you can do a bunch of things. And normally I would just click on add message, but I want to hold off on that just for a couple of minutes because I want to send the message and I want to do it on the half hour. And you'll see why in a minute. Let me discuss what we have here, and then we'll get around to adding a message. Normally when I demonstrate this and in the video tutorial for this, adding a message is something that we do right up front. But we'll try to time this so that we'll actually get a message delivery. Like all of our other screens, in the text messaging manager, when you click on search, you will see the items that have already been sent. So I sent one this morning to member Jenny Cho. And because it's already sent, I can click on the edit icon, and the only thing I can do is change its category because I can't change anything else about it. It's already gone. But if I click over here to view message, it'll pop up a little preview of what the message looked like. So in this particular one, and you'll see that when I show my phone in a little while, it says we have the Northwest Balloon Club, and this is a prefix. We can have a 20-character prefix that gets prepended or prefixed onto your message so that the users know who it's from. We have the body of the message, and then we have a short link here. And if somebody clicks on that link on their phone or taps on the link on their phone, it will take them to whatever that link is. And I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. You can archive a message, and this works pretty much the same as emails or certain other features. We can look over here at the results to say, it's sent one. If I were to look at the results for some other ones, like for this technology team, it says it sent 6. But of the people that were on the distribution list, one of them was refusing text messages. So one is saying it was not allowed. If you archive something, it disappears off of the list. So if I archive the one on the top here, it asks me, are you sure I want to do that? And I say yes. And so that webinar reminder is no longer in the list. But if I click include archive text messages and I search, it will bring that one back up. And for anything that has been archived, you'll see an unarchive icon. So if I unarchive this one here, now it will show up. If I uncheck include archived messages, now it shows up again. So if there are just things you just don't want to show in the list, you can hide them. I mentioned that the couple of configuration options, if I click over here on configure, we have typical categories. And these categories are shared between the text messaging system and the email system. So I made a category here called alert weather or meeting reminder or volunteer request. And the thing that's interesting about this is that you can only edit these items from the module that they were created in. So you see this weather alert, meeting alert, and volunteer. The fact that I can do these maintain items here means that I actually added those categories in the text messaging category. If I wanted to edit the president's monthly emails, I'd have to go to the category management for emails. So that's what this is about. If we look at options, you'll see that this is the message prefix I mentioned a few moments ago. This you would typically put your club name, but it's a maximum of 20 characters. You also decide whether or not you want to allow double length text. Normally, a text message is a total of 160 characters, and you subtract from that the message prefix plus a colon, so that's 21 characters, which leaves, I think, 139 left. But you can enable double length text. So if you have a longer text message, it will send. But keep in mind that you will be billed for 2 text messages. Your bill, a double length text is considered 2 text messages. Now, even if you enable double length text and you enable it in the individual message, if it's less than the 160 characters, it's still going to go through as a single length message. Allow event coordinators to send texts? Well, that's up to you. But much like an email system where within an event, you can send an email so it knows about the event, you can do the same thing with the text messages. Then you have something that says subgroups pay their own text messaging fees. And if you don't check that, then the parent organization does it. And of course, you could disable the text messaging. I want to go and add a message. So if I click on add message here, and we're going to call this webinar recording. Now, this title is really only for the search result list. It just lets you find them easier. So I'm going to say that this is a meeting reminder. And I can either send it now or I can send it on a particular date. If I send it on a particular date, you put in the date and time. I'm going to say send it now. And I'm going to say webinar recording will be available on this page. And if I jump over to a different tab, this is our cool stuff page with webinars. I'm just going to pick up the URL for that, copy it to the clipboard, come over here, click on create a short link. You can do a home page, custom page, all that stuff. I'm going to say that this is an external page, and I'm going to paste that in and save it. And now I have to say, well, who is this going to go to? So I'm going to edit the distribution list. And just like an email, I'm going to say, I want to send this to, say, members of a particular committee. And because I select that, I can choose the technology team committee and choose add. And you can build this as complex as you want. You can save it as a predefined list. So I'm just going to save it. And there are 6 people on this committee. I think 1 is refusing, and really only 1 at the moment has a legitimate phone number in here. So I'm going to say that's fine. Say there's 2 to be sent. 1 is refusing, 1 is not allowed. Here's where you would decide whether or not to use a double length message. And I could either save it as a draft, or I'm going to say it's ready for delivery. So you'll see that this message has been queued for immediate delivery. Now let's see what happens if I move over here. And what I've got is my cell phone. And you should be able to see it on the left side of the screen. And if all goes well, within about 3 minutes, we should see that pop up, because the process that sends the text messages runs every 15 minutes. In this case, it's going to be running on the hour, but it doesn't always run on the hour. But the process runs every 15 minutes. So in about 3 minutes, we should see that show up and show up over here. If I want to make a duplicate of any of these, I can click on the clipboard to copy a text message. So if I were to click on this, it creates a new one that says copy of webinar recording. And so I can go in here and say, we'll call this webinar recording reminder, and say, in case you missed it, the webinar recording, we'll say, is available, because we'll send this out in 2 days. And I'm going to say on a particular date. Let's do this like 2 days from now at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, and I'm saying this is ready for delivery. And because we made a copy, it already kept the short link. So if I choose ready for delivery, now you see that one is delivery has been scheduled for a particular date and time. Now, this is the time relative to the time zone of your organization. So I'm sitting here in New Jersey. Our office is near Chicago. And so this will be sent out 9 a.m. Chicago time, because that's where the Northwest Balloon Club is sitting. And hopefully in about another minute, this should show up. Now you'll see over here, this 855 number, that's the toll-free number that has been assigned to the Northwest Balloon Club. So I could go into the information for that and just create a new contact called Northwest Balloon Club. Now, when this thing comes through, one thing that is not obvious about it is that you can't reply to a message. This does not accept replies. We're considering how you might do it. There it comes. You see down at the bottom here, at the bottom it says Northwest Balloon Club, webinar recording will be available on this page. If I click on the link after the words this page, what it does is opening up, in my case, Safari, and taking me to that page. So this is the way you could very easily send messages. So I'm going to jump back there. So everything here worked exactly the way I'd expect it to work. And on December 6th at 9 o'clock in the morning, this other reminder message will show up. Samantha, do we have any questions to this point?
We do not. There was simply one question very early on of how to enable text messaging, and that was something that you had gone through.
All right. So I'm going to do a couple of things here. So let's just do some basic things here. Once this thing has been delivered, and I'll refresh the page, so we'll see that webinar recording, one that was just delivered, now says it was sent on a particular date and time. You'll see that it was sent by Martin Smith to the technology team. One message unit was used, because it turns out there was only one person that actually had a valid phone number there. If I click over here on the results, it will say, okay, there was one of the 6 people, one person is not allowing text messages. So I have to reject it. Well, actually, bad or rejected was rejected for some other reason. Not allow is here. One was successfully sent, and 4 of them had bad phone numbers. What we can do is we can click up here on the bad number button, and it will give a report here on who has bad phone numbers. And you'll notice that I had a bunch of these with real phone numbers when I was recording the tutorial, because I wanted to show sending out 6 messages to the technology team. But because I didn't want to use real phone numbers after the tutorial, I just replaced the exchange with 555. So there must be a process that runs, because it is showing here all of the invalid phone numbers, which I find interesting, because Jenny's number has been changed to my own phone number, and that's why it's sent. But so here you can look at the numbers, you can click on it and go to the bad phone numbers list and either change it or retry it or remove the phone number or just leave it alone. So it takes you to the screens, and it shows what all of these do, whether it's an invalid number or if it's permanently unavailable. It just means that the phone number doesn't exist anymore. These are all responses that we get from the service that sends out the text messages, because it goes through a text message aggregator that sends these things out, that knows how to deal with different phone companies and countries and all of that. So you can look at this screen here for where the phone numbers are invalid, or for bad formats or invalid phone numbers. It's showing you what you can do. You can change the phone number. You can have the member contact their cellular provider, and because maybe there's an issue with their service. You can reactivate the phone number if you thought that, well, it wasn't working before, but now it works. So you can follow the instructions on here, or you can click the help icon to go to the new help system. And if you haven't tried the new help system, it's time to try it. It's rather spectacular. And Samantha was leading the charge on that one. And on all of the things here in the search results, you can also see reports. So if I say, look at this one here, that was a tech venue change. And it simply says the tech committee will meet at 11 a.m. in the club hangar instead of the office. That's the kind of thing that you would typically send out as a text message, because maybe it's weather related, maybe the one building's got no power and you need to move someplace else. It's very nice to be able to just reach out to people very quickly and send them text messages. But if I come over here to reports, I can see results by status. I can see what the failed delivery was, and I can see what was received. Let's see what received in cost looks like. And I'll send it out as an HTML report. Nothing. I don't know why it's nothing. Oh, because this is the demo club. This one probably wasn't legitimately sent. If I come back here, let's see what that one happens. This demo club doesn't actually send out text messages unless I flip a special switch that takes it out of demo mode. And let's see if this one loads properly. Okay, so this is saying, okay, so Jenny Cho got it, and it was a 2-cent charge for her to get it. Those other ones were not actually sent, but they appear as sent, just so that we could stick things into the list here. So I want to go through a couple of the other statuses here. That this one here is draft. It was created on a particular date, and that was because when we went into add message, we simply said save. We didn't say it was ready for delivery. So it just saves it. You can go back in and edit it. It's still in draft mode. This one that says draft scheduled for means it was in draft mode, but it wasn't set for now. It was set for a particular date. So the status is trying to just let you know that it hasn't been sent. It hasn't been said is ready for delivery. But if you were to set it for delivery, it would try to send on this particular date. Now, if that date has already passed, it will simply treat it as queued for immediate delivery. If it was sent, you get the time that it was actually sent. So this one was actually sent at 11:30 Chicago time, so within a minute of where I expected it to be. And if you have one that's queued for delivery, for immediate delivery, it'll say queued for immediate delivery. We have this bad numbers, which I showed you. I'm not going to click on user report not allowing. What that does is it gives you a report of all the people that have not checked the allow text messaging box on their profile. And I'm not going to do it here because this is a demo club and only 5 people. I've manually gone and logged in as each of them and turned it on for them. But this would be a way of you getting a quick report of all those people that are not allowing it. Saved distribution lists work the same as the distribution lists for your email blasts. So if I click on add a distribution list, I can say, oh, I want something for all open renewals, and we add that. And we can say, or anybody that's a trial member. And I can then save this to renewals trial. And I can save that. And so this way I can go in If I want to send something to say, hey, we want to send to anybody that's in their renewal cycle or anybody that is a trial member, regardless of whether or not they're in the renewal cycle, it will send to people that are in either or both of those two groups. Like emails, you're not actually creating a list. You're creating a set of query parameters that will be analyzed at runtime when the message is actually sent. So if you say something like members of the board of directors, and maybe your board of directors changes after the first of the year. Well, if you send one today to the board of directors, it'll send it to the board of directors as of today. But if you schedule a follow-up and you say, I'm sending it this thing January 15th to the board of directors, it's going to send the messages to those people that are on your board of directors committee on that date. So you're not sitting here maintaining spreadsheets of who's on this mailing list. It will actually look at it in real time and deduplicate. So if you have somebody that's got an open renewal and is on the executive board committee, it won't send them two messages. It will only send one. What about if I go to the control panel here and I go to the people tab and I go to member manager, and if I go to, say, Diaz, and I search for Manny Diaz, and I come to his record here, and I go to contact info, and I scroll down, you'll see that he's got a mobile phone number in here, but I can't do anything. This checkbox is grayed out. So I cannot do that. As an administrator or coordinator, I can't do that. He has to do that. And that's why that notify members is useful. Similarly, you can't do that for non-members. Now, with non-members, can only specify that they want to receive text messages when they fill out their contact info information. There's no way for you to go in and change that. So if I come over to Mark Abrams here and I come here, they have a field. Well, there should be a field for, their cell phone field. Maybe it hasn't been updated. I thought that this was updated so that when they register their information, checkboxes there, yes, it's okay to send me text messages. It may be that it's simply not showing because I'm an administrator here. So because there's no way for a non-member to log in and update their information, they really can only do this when they sign up. And it might be they sign up because clicked on add to your mailing list or something like that. When you're not logged in, it'll say add to my mailing list. And that's one of your club options if you want them to be able to do that. Or if they are registering for an event. And speaking of events, if I go into an event, if I go, say, to the club tab and I go into an event and I search for an event, let's look at this 4th annual symposium. If I click on the edit icon for this, just as there is an email icon, there is now a text messaging icon. So if you click on text messaging, it is bringing you to the text messaging manager for this event. So I could add a message, and what happens in the distribution list, just like emails, I can pull from any one of the saved distribution lists, or I can say create a new list, and just like emails, at the top of the list, instead of starting the list from all active members, as we showed before, this one, you can send a text message to everybody who's registered for this event, or all active members who are not registered for the event, or all non-members who are not registered for the event, or people that have already paid for the event, or people that have not paid for the event, or people that have registered for a specific activity. If there's more than one activity, the activity would be here. So you could say, okay, I want to send out a message to all the people that are coming to our symposium. I want to send it out to all the people that ordered fish. And then you find out that they won't be having fish. They're going to be having seafood instead, or for some reason or another, they couldn't get their fish. You could be very specific as to who you're sending your text messages to. So that's a really useful thing. But you get the same thing here, and you get the same thing. I think if we go to the event calendar and I go into edit, if I go to a quick event over here, I think there is also a text message icon here for quick events. So you do the same thing. But again, here, this is the event text messaging manager, as opposed to what we were looking at before was the regular text messaging manager. And if I go and add, well, if I just go into anything here, if I use the distribution list, you'll see that it doesn't have any event information. It starts at the active solo and primary members, or all active members. So let's see. Is there anything else? The only thing I wanted to mention before is that let's assume that I'm adding a link. You see, right now I've got 139 characters to be able to type in the message. So it's showing how many of the characters have been used. If I add a link, and I'll use that same URL, I'm assuming it's still here, that now shortens it because the link takes up 20 characters, something like that. But you can appreciate how much better it is than trying to paste this URL into your text message, because that's going to eat up a lot of characters. So what it's doing is it's showing you how many characters there are, how many are left. And if I say I want to allow double-length messages, it will add to that. And if I get rid of the external page link, well, now it's at 263. If I get rid of that, now we're back up at the 285. So you can see that we're trying to make it very easy for you to stay within whatever parameters you set. But even if you say use double-length message, if it's not, in fact, longer than the single message, it's still going to be treated as a single message. And I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Samantha, do we have any questions?
Yes. So a couple of questions. There were a lot of people who had chimed in right after you asked if anyone had questions. So there was a little bit of a mad rush.
Good.
So there were questions about the cost and things that people had missed. One question that has come up a couple of times is regard to event registrants and texting through events. So the main question is, when non-members register for an event, how do they enable text messaging so that they're able to get updated information through the event itself?
Well, let's try something. I haven't tried this. I'm going to log out, and I'm going to click on Add Me to Your Mailing List. And let's see if that thing actually got put in here. Here it is. So when they're registering for an event, they type in their first name and last name and all of that. And you see, here's where you have the mobile phone, and here's where they would agree to receive text messages from the Balloon Club. So that's where they would do that. And we noticed on the non-member manager, it's still saying the word cell phone and has not been updated to gray this out to disable this. Now, unfortunately, there's no way for a non-member to log in and change this. However, it is likely, although I haven't tried doing it, it's likely if they're trying to register for another event, there's a link that will say, hey, have you already registered for an event? So if I come over here to the calendar, and let's see if I try to register for this. If I say sign up, it'll say, okay, are you a club member? Log in to register. Or have you previously registered for an event? And are you on our mailing list? So if I click over here, I don't remember any of our demo ones here, but it's very possible that they may be able to update their information. So when you go to this thing here to search, it may give you the option to update your information. I'm just not sure. And I think we'll talk to our developer and say, okay, let's put that mobile phone and enable thing on the event registration screen, because it is on the add me to your mailing list. So Samantha, if you could just take a note on that, we'll talk to the developers and make sure that that gets added.
I sure have.
All right.
And yeah, those were most of the questions. So one question, can you send a message to a single non-member from the non-member database?
And the answer is yes.
Yes. So all of the distribution list options that you would normally see in emailings are available to you through text messaging.
Yeah. The way you would do that is you go into text messaging, and if I were to add a message and we go to the distribution list, down towards the bottom, there is one member selected from the database or one non-member selected from the database. So if I say one non-member, you would click on select, and let's try this fellow here. There's a bunch of people. Let's go Marcia Decktal and add that. And that's the way you could send it to Marcia, provided she has agreed to receive text messages. This screen doesn't know that.
Yes, I just actually did a little test on my own offline here, and I registered for an event which was open to non-members, and I do see a box when I enter in my personal information to agree to receive text messages from the Northwest Balloon Club. So to answer the question to several people who had asked about non-members registering for events, they do have the option to enable text messaging for that event when they do register. We had a couple of questions about when you're adding members on your own, especially non-members from a manual form, can you check the box for them to receive text messages? And the answer is no, you cannot enable text messaging for anyone other than yourself.
Right. Yeah, we try to stay within the law.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So let's say we've done configured with categories. It's very straightforward. Save distribution list. We've looked at the options. Bad numbers we looked at.
A couple more questions.
Sure.
Is the link in the text message always at the end of the text?
Yes. The link to the text message will always appear. And this little eyeball here only appears for sent messages. And yes, it is always at the bottom. Yes. And the prefix is always at the front, followed by a colon.
And when non-member and member records are merged, is that information kept?
As far as I know, yes.
Yes. And that looks like it is all of the questions. We had a lot of really active members in the chat today, which is wonderful.
I hope people found this useful. Let me just ask: has anybody, and Samantha will check the chat, has anybody already enabled this feature, and are you using it yet? And or does this look like it's going to be a really useful thing for you? Is your club likely to want to enable this? Again, it's only $2 a month for the phone number. And so, in fact, let me just do this here. If I click over here and I go to info and I want to add a contact, create a new contact. So we're going to call this the NWBALLON.
We have a couple of members who have said that we have one who hasn't enabled it, but they will, and another who has enabled it and are looking to try to get their members to actually go into their profile and check that box so that they can receive all of the wonderful text messages that they have to offer.
So now you'll see at the top here, it's saying the Northwest Balloon Club, so that when I get a text message from it, I know it's from that account. And that's the reason that everybody gets their own phone number, so that your members can put it into their contact list. And every time a message comes in, it'll say it's from the Northwest Balloon Club or from whatever your club is. So again, you get charged $2 a month, regardless of whether or not you actually send any messages. It's pretty straightforward. Now, when you enable this, it takes a little bit of time, sometimes a couple of hours, before the configuration is done for your club and the phone number is assigned. So don't try to enable it. The hurricane is coming. It's coming. And we've just canceled the meeting. Quick, let's enable text messaging. Give it at least a couple of hours in advance, because the team may queue up a couple of things and then assign a few numbers at once. So there will be a message that says on the enabling screen that it may take a while. And if you go to YouTube for a moment, we go to YouTube. And let me go to ClubExpress text, and we go to the text messaging tutorial, and it's a 20-minute tutorial that'll cover all the things I've talked about today. But you will see. Let me see if I can find it here. So we have the screen that we just talked about. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Once you enable it, it says it's been enabled. You must wait until we approve your request and assign you a number before we can send text messages. Once you've requested, I don't think anybody's ever going to get turned down. But once you've requested it, you can actually get into the text messaging manager and start preparing emails. It's just that you won't be able to send them until that toll-free number has been configured for you. So you can go there. And the other thing is, if we just go to the control panel, I always want to let people know that we have this lovely new help system. So if you click over here on help, it will open up a new tab with the new help system, where you've got all of these text-sensitive help for whatever you're dealing with. And so if you want to go something like adding a custom page, it'll give you all the information. And if there are videos about this, you click on watch videos, and it will take you to YouTube, the playlist. I'm seeing some things that you won't see. So these are all the things that relate to that. And you can also print a manual. So if you are doing something like, say, the People tab, and you want to go about the Member Manager, if you click on Print Manual, what it will do is it will give you all the information about that. In fact, this one I think was the People tab itself, as opposed to just the Member Manager. And so you can print your own custom manuals. And it's really, this new system is terrific. You can search, you can go home and click on Getting Started and things like that. So if you haven't had a chance to explore the new manuals, and by all means, explore the new help system. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. And we hope to see you in the next webinar, which will actually be 2 weeks from now. Samantha is going to give you a tour of the new help system. So nobody knows more about it than she does. So I'm looking forward to that myself. So thank you, everyone, for coming, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.